to Midpoint Library System's Writer's Room. I'm Miss Tamara from Midpoint Trenton, and today we're going to talk in lock in the plot. So I have my recommended book for the month. It is called Plot and Structure, Techniques and Exercising for Crafting a Plot that Grips Readers from Start to Finish. This is by James Scott Bell, who is probably the best writing author that I found. It's from Writer's Digest Books 2004, and it's available through our Search Ohio member libraries, which most of it is back up on Search Ohio. If you need any Search Ohio, you can request it. And I have been reading Writer's Digest magazine, hundreds of writing books, over 35 plus years as a writer. Took a couple creative writing classes at Miami University. But this book is my motherlode of writing advice. Found it in 2004, and it's part of the Write Great Fiction series. In my humble opinion, it is the best writing book ever, and it's been practical, helpful, and all kinds of things. So I'm giving a huge thank you to James Scott Bell, and we're going to use Chapter 1, What's a Plot Anyway, for today's topic and advice. And I'm going to start with this quote from the book. Does it work? By work, I mean connect with readers. That's the function of plot after all. The reading experience is supposed to transport people, move them through the power of story. Plot is the power grid that makes it happen. So how does a writer tap into this power grid? Well, Mr. Bell has come up with a system called Plot Made Simple equals the lock system. So it's called the lock system, just like it sounds. So, the word lock, this is the most important thing that I've ever learned as a writer, and it really helps me a lot. So, L equals your lead. O equals objective. Because you don't have a story if your lead does not have a goal. C equals confrontation. You do not have much of a story if you don't have any conflict. K is the one I love. It stands for knock out ending. I call it the wow. If the ending leaves you with a wow, then you've hit the ball out of the park. So, the lead, of course, is your main character. Objective is, what does your lead want? C is, what kind of opposition is your lead facing from other characters or outside forces? Knockout is your ending needs to have a knockout wow power. You want it to resonate with your readers. So, whenever I start a new fiction project, this lock is my go-to thing, and it usually works with a character first. So I'm a very character person. So your main character, you want to establish a bond so the reader cares about the character. You want to make this character compelling to your reader, even if it's somebody who might be called a villain. Your job is to keep the reader turning the pages to get to the end. So an example of a character who starts out not so bad is Scrooge. Everybody knows Scrooge from the Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. So he starts out as a very nasty character, but by the end he's changed. And so that's kind of how do you keep the reader turning those pages. So if you want more than one lead character, so if you're like writing something with an ensemble cast, try to use this lock system for each leading player in your story. It's a more complicated plot, but you can get as complicated as you want with this. So objectives. What does your lead want? So according to James Scott Bell, it's either to get something or get away from something, which leads to what's called the story question. And the story question is, will your lead realize the objective? So this story question, for it to be an engaging story, needs to be something that if they don't get away or get it, then that lead's going to take a tremendous hit for the worse, to quote James Scott Bell. And then C is confrontation. So what other characters want to stop your lead? What outside forces, natural, supernatural, etc., are against your lead? And opposition characters should be as compelling as the lead and have believable motivations for wanting to keep the lead from the objective. So we don't want cardboard villains. They're not very exciting. And then K is for your knockout. You want to have that knockout, what I call the wow power. And as James Scott Bell writes, take your lead through the journey toward the objective, then send that opposition down to the mat. So when I read a book or watch a TV show or a movie, a weak ending kind of makes it disappointing or forgettable. Especially with TV shows. If you've been a fan of a TV show and invest years in this show, you want it to end in a good way. So 2 wow experiences that stick with me as a writer is a book I read by Dean Koontz, published in 2008, called Your Heart Belongs to Me. That book, actually, the ending left me in tears. And all 3 of the first Lord of the Rings movies, the trilogy, I left the theater just wowed. So you want to, when you think about wowing your authors, think about what makes you happy with an ending. What kind of endings do you like? Which books, which movies, which TV shows? Look for things that influence you, because what I find wow may not be wow for you. So you got to find things that wow you. And that'll figure out in the exercises I give you at the end. So before I leave chapter 1 of plot and structure to share my own lock example, there's another set of 4s that James Scott Bell gives. It's called How to Spice Up Your Plot. He gives us 4 spices to make the plot your own. So characters. This is a quote by a playwright called Lajos Egri, and it's called The Key to Originality in Fiction Comes from the Characters. I'm a very character-driven kind of writer. Setting. Look for new places to put your character in. Don't be afraid to have to research. We have the internet. We have lots of places to go for internet. And dig deep and find original details about your character's work and home life. And then dialogue. All your characters should have a unique voice. Words your character uses tell the reader about who that character is. And then scene selection. I really like this one. It's called Develop an Imagination that looks at different ways a scene can go, because I'm actually considering the story that I'm going to share with you to write it completely from the other character and the story's point of view. So it's kind of nice to play around with that. You might get a different perspective on something. So putting the lock in the plot. So like I said, I've been writing for like 35 years or longer and still have on my bucket list to finish a novel. So for my example, I am going to be using fan fiction. If you're unfamiliar with fan fiction, it actually began kind of as a modern phenomenon. It's credited with starting with Star Trek in 1967. I find fan fiction a great way to practice writing because you already have established characters and settings to work with. So my first fan fiction were Star Trek The Next Generation stories. I was doing them in attempts to get professionally published. They ran a contest called Strange New Worlds, and I entered 7 stories from 2000 to the last contest in 2006. I never got published, but I was encouraged by making the second read pile out of thousands of stories, and was encouraged. The editor, Dean Wesley Smith, would send me nice rejection letters that he'd take time to handwrite a note about my writing. So he told me, keep writing on keep working on your writing. It's already very strong. And I had that framed at one point in my writing room. So my foray back into fan fiction came with the TV show Once Upon a Time. If you don't know what Once Upon a Time is, it is a fantasy fairy tale drama that was created by Adam Horowitz and Edward Kitsis, and it ran on ABC from 2011 to 2018 for 7 seasons. And they used a lot of Disney characters because ABC is also affiliated with Disney. So in 2015, I entered a deleted scene contest run by the fan site Once Upon a Fan. To my surprise, my story, Dark Practice, won the contest. This was the first time a piece I wrote appeared for anyone to read who wasn't a family member, a friend, or co-worker, or just any kind of acquaintance. Better than that, as writers need to network, I have forged friendships with many of this Once Upon a Fan folks that continue to this day. I do a podcast with one of them. And so A Thorn for the Rose, the story I'm going to share with you today, was also entered in a contest from Once Upon a Fan for a 2017 awards that fans voted on as long as it was published on a fan fiction platform. My fan fiction lives on the site Archive of Our Own, or AO3 for short. For those of you unfamiliar with Once Upon a Time, my story focuses on their mashup of Beauty and the Beast. It involves characters of Belle and Rumpelstiltskin. It's from Rumpel's point of view because for me, of all the characters, he came to life more than any other character I've ever seen or read about because of compelling writing and captivating acting of Robert Carlyle. So yes, I really fangirled with this character. So what this is called is A Thorn for the Rose. So there's my announcement that I had won. So it was the first time I ever won something the same time that Robert Carlyle did because he got nominated. He was always the best actor from the show by the fans. So that was like my excitement. So this one shot, this is my summary from Archive of Our Own. This one shot takes place after Rumpelstiltskin catches Belle from a ladder fall at the window in the episode Skin Deep, which is in the first season. So basically my conflict is Rumpel he's reawakened from Belle's light, and he's at war with himself because he is possessed by this entity called the Dark One, if you don't know Once Upon a Time. So since he's experiences this, he's been trying to avoid Belle and everything because he's falling in love with her. And basically he found this horse that he's going to enchant to send her back home because he can't have this interfering with his plans. So, but he's been troubled because he's having visions because he can see the future, and he sees Belle's marriage to Gaston is going to be hideous and very dark and unhappy for Belle. So he's kind of fighting with enchanting this horse that he's found that Belle, he starts the story, he's watching Belle from his tower window, watching Belle feed the horse and take care of this horse because he said it got attacked by possibly werewolves and he's got to make this potion for it. So he's delaying and stalling, and his internal struggle is with the Dark One who's telling him his heart's fluttering and he's stalling and all this stuff. So this is kind of my story. So I'll tell you, this is like the rule of the story was it could only be 500 pages. I wrote like a 1,000-page outline for this story. So I'm a visual person. So the Proverbs where I got the title, it's called A Thorn Defends the Rose, harming only those who would steal the blossom. So Rumpel's the thorn, Belle's the rose, and Gaston is the thief. Because Gaston is not, as we know from the cartoon, Gaston's not a good guy. So, and I was also trying to find a motivation in the show for why Rumpel killed Gaston and turned him into a rose. So in my story, my lead was Rumpel, of course, and his objective is he's trying to protect his vulnerable heart, but he also wants to protect Belle, so he's kind of got that struggle. He's confronted by his Dark One entity that tells him to let Belle go, and by a vision that if he allows Belle her freedom, she's going to suffer in an abusive marriage to Gaston. So the ending's actually a knockout when Rumpel tells the Dark One taunting him, "I'll find another way." He vowed as Rose the horse nuzzled Belle, if Gaston comes near, he'll find a thorn named Rumpelstiltskin defending Belle. So that was the end of my story. And like I said, we'll post the link to that. So I'm going to give you some exercises because we like to do exercises for writing. These are taken directly from chapter 1 of the Plot and Structure book. This one is to remind us that writers, we also need to be readers. So he kind of recommends take some of your favorite novels off the shelf and analyze them using the lock system. See how each element is at work in the books you love. So use questions to help you. What is it about the lead character that captures you? What is it the lead is trying to get or get away from? When did the story kick into high gear? What was the main opposition to the lead's objective? And how did the ending make you feel? Why didn't it work? And then the other one is, like I just went through with my story, use the lock system to write a quick plot. You can come up with a title if you want, but just kind of basically say the lead is blank. The lead's objective is to do this. The lead is confronted by blank, who opposes the lead because blank, and the ending will be a knockout win. So it kind of gives you a brief skeleton of a story. So I hope you've enjoyed this writer's room. I want to give a huge shout out again to James Scott Bell, who has written many incredible books to help other writers. And I hope Lock in the Plot helps all of you watching if you like to write. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please share them on our YouTube or Facebook. And if you have any detailed writing questions or would like to share something you've written with me, you can email me at tmenninger@midpointlibrary.org. I would be happy to answer questions. To keep up with what's happening at Midpoint, please like us on Facebook and Instagram, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can see all the cool stuff that Midpoint Library is doing in the world of virtual programming. Thank you very much.